Well, guys, it is now time for my Week 5 picks of the 2025 NFL season. As last week, I went 9-6-1. I had a horrible 4 p.m. games last week. It was just terrible and such. Worst results of the week. Hopefully I can recover after the first 2 weeks were so amazing. And of course, here is the regular season and playoff stands of the season end of the day. In the AFC, it's the Bills with the bye, with Chiefs at Chargers, Bengals at Steelers, and Jaguars at Colts. And in the NFC, it's the Eagles with the bye, with Packers at 49ers, Rams at Lions, and Seahawks at Buccaneers. And my Super Bowl prediction right now is the Bills over the Eagles. Alright, 4 undefeated teams left and 3 winless teams remaining. So now, let's get to my Week 5 picks, shall we? I have no idea why this didn't get updated correctly. As we start off with, once again, an NFC West matchup for Thursday night. And it's a big one, too, as it's the 49ers at the Rams. The Rams won the last 3. The 49ers haven't beaten them since 2023. So the 49ers, Brock Purdy played again, and he played like crap against the Jaguars and lost to give them their first loss of the year. That doesn't look good. Meanwhile, the Rams beat the Colts in a very hard-fought game, too. Really important, too, to recover after that loss to the Eagles, to stay alive in that very competitive division at the moment. Wasn't expecting that. So, yeah, this is going to be an interesting game. Of course, Mac Jones is starting for the 49ers. But, yeah, I'm probably going to pick the Rams right now. I trust Stafford more. But, hey, maybe it can go either way. And then we get to the Sunday games, which I'm not looking forward to, since I have to work this Sunday, so I'm not going to be able to watch a lot of these games. Anyways, first start off is the next international game. The first game in London, as it's the Vikings at the Browns for the first time since 2017. Literally, the last time they visited the Browns was also in London, too, remember. As the Browns won the last one, the Vikings haven't beaten them since 2017. The Browns haven't beaten them at home since 1989. So the Vikings, of course, they got spanked by the Steelers when they played in Ireland last week. Meanwhile, the Browns got destroyed by the Lions, even though their defense still looks very weird, where they're like the elite in every yard category except in points. I still find it fascinating. As now Flacco's been benched, new rookie QB's playing, but not Shedeur Sanders, of course. But yeah. Other than the Browns' defense doing a good job, I just can't trust their offense at the moment. So I'm going to pick the Vikings for this one. Hopefully their defense will actually do the job, though, because I like watching that Browns defense. Alright, then we get to the 1 p.m. game, starting off with the Cowboys at the Jets for the first time since 2019. The Cowboys won the last one. The Jets haven't beaten them since 2019. And the Cowboys haven't won in East Rutherford against the Jets since 2003. As the Jets are trying to avoid 0-5 for the first time since 2020. So the Cowboys, once again, when they're at home, their offense freaking cooks as they ended up tying the Packers. This was the first time the Cowboys tied since I think the 70s, as they just avoid a loss, but man, their defense sucks ass. Meanwhile, the Jets, hard-fought game against the Dolphins, but couldn't get the job done in the end and such. And yeah, I trust the Cowboys offense more, so I'm going to pick the Cowboys to win it. Then it's the Giants at the Saints for the first time since 2023, as the Saints won the last 3. The Giants haven't beaten them since 2021, as the Saints are trying to avoid 0-5 for the first time since 1996. So the Giants, Jackson Dart's first start, and they got the win. They upset the Chargers and such, which was very impressive. Now, if they can keep that momentum up, though, will be interesting. Meanwhile, the Saints, of course, actually put up a good, hard-fought game against the Bills, but just couldn't get it done in the end. Very competitive and such. Saints are really weird. For all their games except the Seahawks, they've been competitive and such. Even though they're supposed to be, I think, one of the worst teams in the league. Oh, boy. Neither team really is trustable and such. Ugh, this is a tough one. But maybe a gamble, I'm not sure. I'm going to pick the Giants for this one. And then it's the Raiders at the Colts for the first time since 2023. The Colts won the last 2. The Raiders haven't beaten them since 2021. As the Raiders, hard-fought game against the Bears, but couldn't get it done in the end, as Genti had an incredible game with 3 total touchdowns. Meanwhile, the Colts, hard-fought game, but they couldn't get it done against the Rams, suffered their first loss of the year. Their defense took a big hit in the stats, as Daniel Jones did not play good, although he did have 1 touchdown taken away from him. Freaking Mitchell losing the ball going into the end zone. My goodness, that made the difference too in the game. So yeah, bit of a deflating game for the Colts, but they still are superior to the Raiders, so I'm going to pick the Colts for this one. Then it's the Dolphins at the Panthers for the first time since 2017. As the Dolphins won the last two, the Panthers haven't beaten them since 2017. As the Dolphins finally got their first win of the year when they beat the Jets in a hard-fought game. Although they lost Tyreek Hill for the season, so that's going to really suck. Meanwhile, the Panthers are such a weird team. Let's see. First off, they got destroyed by the Jaguars week 1. Then they were getting destroyed by the Cardinals before they made that massive comeback and almost won in week 2. Then they shut out the Falcons out of nowhere in week 3. And then they got completely destroyed by the Patriots, more because of their special teams. My goodness, the Panthers are such a very weird team and all that. But, of course, can't trust their offense, so I'm going to pick the Dolphins for this one. Alright, then it's a big out-of-conference matchup as it's the Broncos at the Eagles for the first time since 2017. Eagles won the last two. Let me fix that. The Broncos haven't beaten them since 2013, and they haven't won in Philly since 1986, as the Eagles are trying to go 5-0 for the first time since 2023. So the Broncos completely destroyed the Bengals, but is that really much of an accomplishment now that Burrow's gone, as they got back to 500? Meanwhile, the Eagles, they were spanking the Buccaneers at first, and they almost started choking in the end, but they got the win. Only team in the NFC still undefeated, although they haven't been very impressive so far this year compared to last year. I feel like they're the 2023 team all over again, but I'm still going to pick the Eagles for this one. Here we go. Then it's the Texans at the Ravens for the first time since 2023. As the Ravens won the last 6, the Texans haven't beaten them since 2014, and they have never won in Baltimore. So the Texans finally got their first win after they shut out the Titans, but again, is that really much an accomplishment? Meanwhile, the Ravens, ugly game against the Chiefs. They got spanked hard as the Chiefs finally look like they're back to their former self. But to make matters worse for the Ravens, as I'm not surprised they're 1-3, but what's unfortunate for them is Lamar got injured. And who knows if he's going to even play this week. But to be honest, even if he doesn't play, I still think the Ravens are the better team. So I'm going to pick the Ravens regardless if Lamar plays or not. Alright, then we get to the 4 p.m. games. Starting off with the Titans at the Cardinals for the first time since 2017. As the Cardinals won the last one, the Titans haven't beaten them since 2017. As the Titans are trying to avoid 0-5 for the first time since 2009. So the Titans got shut out by the Texans as they're like one of the worst teams in the league. There's nothing else to say. Cardinals, meanwhile, their stats are starting to implode after they lost a close game to the Seahawks. And yeah, it's probably going to be the MO so far for the Cardinals this year, only winning against crappy teams. So I'm going to pick the Cardinals for this one. Then we get to a huge NFC matchup, as is the Buccaneers at the Seahawks for the first time since 2019. As the Buccaneers won the last one, the Seahawks haven't beaten them since 2019. And the Buccaneers have never won in Seattle. So the Buccaneers choked against the Eagles. They made the comeback, almost made the comeback in the end, but they couldn't get the job done after that terrible start of the game. Meanwhile, the Seahawks, they're 3-1, but I'm still not fully impressed with them so far. They need a really big statement win and such. And this could be their good opportunity against the Buccaneers. But I still trust the Buccaneers more, so I'm going to pick them to get this. And then it's the Lions at the Bengals for the first time since 2017. As the Bengals won the last 7, the Lions haven't beaten them since 1992. As the Lions destroyed one of the league's best defenses in the Browns, they're now 3-1, and they've looked very impressive after that Week 1 loss. Meanwhile, the Bengals, they look like one of the worst teams in the league now that Burrow's gone, as they got destroyed by the Broncos on Monday night. Yeah, there's nothing else to say here. I'm picking the Lions for this one. And then a big outer conference matchup as it's the Commanders at the Chargers for the first time since 2017. The Chargers won the last 2. The Commanders haven't beaten them since 2013. And they haven't won against the Chargers on the road since 1986. So the Commanders, they lost to the Falcons in a hard-fought game. Once again, Mariota didn't play. I think Daniels might actually play this week, which would be very good for them. Meanwhile, the Chargers, losing to the Giants, and Justin Herbert looked like crap again. That was terrible. But I still trust them more than the Commanders, so I'm going to pick the Chargers for this one. And then we get to Sunday night, which I thought was a crappy matchup, but ended up right now being good, as it's the Patriots at the Bills. The Patriots won the last one. The Bills haven't beaten them since last year, and the Patriots haven't won in Buffalo since 2021. As the Patriots destroyed the Panthers last week, as they're surprised. I don't know if I would say they're a surprise 2-2 team, but they're playing pretty good right now for a team that was like 4 wins the last 2 years. They're playing pretty solid. Meanwhile, the Bills, of course, look like the class of the AFC after they beat the Saints. Although that was a close game against the Saints, they should have destroyed them, and they didn't. So that's a little bit of a warning sign right there. But I'm going to, of course, pick the Bills for this one. And then we get to Monday night, which I thought was a terrible matchup, but so far it's actually being good, as it's the Chiefs at the Jaguars for the first time since 2023. The Chiefs won the last 7. The Jaguars haven't beaten them since 2009. So the Chiefs finally look like a competent team for like, what, after like 2 years? Since they really didn't look good at all last year. After they destroyed the Ravens and Mahomes put up 4 touchdowns, he looked really good as the Chiefs are back at 500. Meanwhile, the Jaguars had a really good defensive game against the 49ers. They're now 3-1, a surprise one too at that. Maybe they're going to actually be good this year. Yeah, it's going to be a hard-fought game because these two, when they play each other over the last few years, they've been very close games. But I'm going to take my gut and going to pick the Chiefs still for this one. Alright, so those are my picks for Week 5. I cannot wait for 49ers Rams night today. I'll be able to watch it for once. I finally can be home on Thursday instead of working. So my picks are the Rams over the 49ers, the Vikings over the Browns, the Cowboys over the Jets, the Giants over the Saints, the Colts over the Raiders, the Dolphins over the Panthers, the Eagles over the Broncos, the Ravens over the Texans, the Cardinals over the Titans, Buccaneers over the Seahawks, Lions over the Bengals, Chargers over the Commanders, Bills over the Patriots, and Chiefs over the Jaguars. Alright, so see you all next week for my Week 6 picks.